They tried to curse you, but what they didn't expect was that the fire they built for your destruction would be the very flame that ignites your deliverance. This is not a myth, not a metaphor. This is the anatomy of divine reversal, because in the spiritual world, intentions have weight, words have momentum, and every ritual, every candle, every chant, every secret spell either builds toward liberation or digs the grave of its own creator. What happens when someone speaks evil into your life and it rebounds? When they send shadows toward your household but find themselves haunted instead? Curses backfiring isn't just poetic justice, it's scriptural rhythm, it's heaven's design. Yet most don't know that, because today, the line between holy and unholy has been blurred. Witchcraft no longer marches in robes and smoke. It masquerades as healing, empowerment, manifestation. It's taught in pastel-covered books, served through TikTok affirmations, and whispered in the language of energy, intention, and cosmic self. And yet, beneath the marketing lies an ancient hunger, the hunger for control, for dominance, for knowledge outside permission, for access without accountability. C.S. Lewis saw it coming. He wrote that the magician seeks to subdue reality to his wishes, while the true believer seeks to submit his wishes to reality. The ultimate reality being God. That's the difference. That's the dividing line. Because while witchcraft promises personal power, it always requires a price. And that price is often unseen until it's too late. So what happens when someone tries to use that power against the wrong person? What happens when the target is covered? When they are walking under the blood, sealed by covenant, surrounded by a wall not made of stone, but of intercession? The answer is simple. It backfires. And when it does, the torment begins to visit the one who first conceived the spell. The plans they made for your fall become the pits they fall into themselves. The chains they forged to bind your mind become shackles around their own ankles. This video isn't just about awareness, it's about awakening. Because some of you have been under attack and didn't even know it. Some of you have been sleeping in the blast zone of spiritual warfare, wondering why your peace, your progress, your joy feels choked. And today, light is coming in. Not the flicker of superstition, but the fire of clarity. So walk with us. We're about to uncover 7 truths that darkness hoped you'd never understand. 7 reversals, 7 broken chains, 7 ways the curse was turned. And by the end of this journey, you'll see why the enemy regrets ever aiming at you. Every curse is an arrow, invisible, sharp, silent. It doesn't knock at your door. It slips through cracks, through envy, through accusation, through whispers spoken in dark corners by people who smile in the light. But what happens when that arrow, crafted with precision, dipped in malice, and launched at full force, never hits its mark? What happens when it turns midair? You've felt it. Strange delays, sudden chaos with no cause, moments where nothing adds up. You fix one problem and 3 more rise. You sleep and wake up heavy. People begin to turn on you, for no reason at all. You weren't imagining things. Some of those were spiritual arrows, sent not with your permission, but with someone else's agenda, fired not by accident, but by ancient patterns of jealousy, competition, or bitterness. They didn't need a wand, just intention, ritual, and timing. But here's what they never expected: that you would be shielded, covered, not in charm, but covenant, not in sage, but sacrifice. not in energy, but in eternal blood. C.S. Lewis wrote that evil cannot create, it can only twist. It has no original power, only the ability to distort what already exists. So, when witchcraft is launched against someone standing under divine authority, it finds no entry point. It circles, it searches, and finding nothing to cling to, it turns. And when it turns, it doesn't lose its power. It retains every bit of force it was sent with. But now, it's pointed backward, and it begins to unravel the lives of those who created it. Marriages collapse, businesses falter, strange illnesses strike without cause. Restless nights turn to torment, not always instantly, but inevitably, because there is a principle older than spells. You reap what you sow. They sowed sabotage. Now they stumble. They sowed delay. Now they're stuck. They sowed fear. Now they live in shadows. It's not revenge. It's law. The same law that governs sowing and reaping in the earth, governs it in the spirit. And here's where it gets deeper. When you bless your enemies instead of cursing them, when you stand still and let God fight, you activate another dimension of divine protection. One where He not only blocks the arrow, He uses it to build you. Suddenly, the attacks begin to work in your favor. You grow stronger. Your discernment sharpens. Your hunger for prayer increases. And what was meant to break you awakens you. The enemy regrets aiming at you, because now you've become more dangerous. Not because you retaliated, but because you stood still and let the Lord return the arrow. Some people assume that what they don't believe can't hurt them. But in the spiritual realm, belief isn't required. Access is, and access is often granted through ignorance. You don't have to be a witch to suffer from witchcraft. You just have to be unaware, unguarded, unsubmitted, and uninterested in what's happening beyond the visible. C.S. Lewis warned that the enemy loves two kinds of people: those who fear him obsessively and those who deny he exists at all. Ignorance doesn't protect you, it just blinds you while you're being drained. Have you noticed patterns that don't make sense? Every time you gain momentum, something collapses, opportunities vanish, favors dry up. You brush it off as bad luck. But what if it's not random? What if there's a system behind the resistance? Witchcraft doesn't always look like fire and smoke. Sometimes it looks like constant delay, like chronic confusion, like invisible fog over your destiny. And if you don't recognize it, you'll treat it as natural. You'll medicate the spiritual. You'll wrestle with people when the battle was never about them. You see, knowledge isn't just information. In the spirit, it's a weapon. The moment you realize that something isn't natural, you gain power over it. When you learn that those strange dreams have a pattern, you can break them. When you see the root behind a family curse, you can cut it off. But until then, you fight shadows with bare hands. And here's the truth. The enemy doesn't need your agreement. He just needs your passivity. If you won't confront it, you've already conceded. If you won't call it out, you've already welcomed it. And when that ignorance becomes a lifestyle, it creates loopholes, openings, rooms in your house with no locks. That's why discernment isn't optional for the believer. It's part of your survival kit. C.S. Lewis once said that evil is rarely obvious. It often arrives disguised as something good, or worse, harmless. But when you see it for what it is, you can resist it. And when you resist it, it flees. So, this is the call today. Don't fear the battle, but don't ignore it either, because what you don't know might already be at work. Not all mirrors reflect. Some remember. Long before makeup lights and bathroom vanities, mirrors were believed to be more than glass. They were gateways. In secret chambers, witches would gather, not to see themselves, but to summon what wasn't them. They called it the soul window, a surface that, when anointed and encircled with intention, could bend time and space, a place where the seen met the seeking. One story tells of a woman who sat before her mirror at midnight, whispering names backward. She refused food, speech, and light for 3 days before the ritual. At the 30-minute mark, her candle extinguished itself, her mirror turned black, and she claimed to see another face, not hers, watching her from behind her shoulder. She never spoke again. Was it madness, delusion, or did she glimpse something she couldn't unsee? C.S. Lewis warned us about the danger of seeking deep things without the anchor of truth. He wrote that the soul, when left alone to explore itself without humility, often doesn't find revelation, it finds illusion. This is the snare of the mirror ritual. It doesn't begin as evil, it begins with curiosity. What if I could see beyond the veil? What if I could speak to what's gone or what's coming? But in seeking answers, you might awaken watchers. In chasing visions, you might invite voices. You may think you're looking in a mirror. But what if the mirror starts looking back? And worse, what if it remembers your name? This is the quiet genius of witchcraft. It offers clarity. While distorting your reflection, it offers power. While stealing identity, it offers answers, but not peace. Lewis wrote that self-absorption, like certain rituals, becomes a hall of mirrors. The deeper you go, the more versions of yourself you encounter. None of them real, none of them whole, because the mirror ritual isn't just about what's summoned. It's about what sticks afterward. Unexplained fear, shifting eyes in photos, nightmares of being watched, a sudden aversion to your own reflection. You think it's just your imagination, but something else might be rehearsing your face. This is why discernment matters. This is why protection isn't superstition, it's strategy. When you engage the unseen without covering, you don't step into knowledge, you step into risk. So guard the gates. Not every reflection is yours. Not every voice is holy. And not every ritual is innocent. Some mirrors don't break, they bind. They didn't just whisper about you, they bled for it. Because in some corners of the occult, when the usual words and candles aren't enough, they go deeper, they go primal, they cut. Blood to them is power. It's a language spirits recognize. And when they offer it, they believe they're making the curse unstoppable. But what happens when the blood speaks and the curse misses? In one ritual, a woman scrawled a name in ash and oil. She tied the image of her target to a stone, buried it beneath moonlight, and smeared her own blood across the surface. Her words were cold. Let her be forgotten. Let her beauty rot. But a week later, her own skin erupted. Blisters, burning, and the people who once praised her beauty couldn't even look her in the eye because the spell had nowhere else to go. The one she tried to curse was covered. And when a curse hits a wall of holy fire, it doesn't vanish, it reflects. C.S. Lewis once wrote that evil always overreaches, that in trying to overpower truth, it exposes its own limitation. That darkness is not simply the absence of light, it's a miscalculation of it. Blood is not neutral. It marks territory. And when used in the service of darkness, it demands proof of impact. But when you're aligned with heaven, when you're sealed by the blood of Christ, no other blood can override that covenant. So instead of touching your life, the curse turns on the witch. Their mind begins to fray. The spirits they called begin to speak without permission. Nightmares increase. Peace disappears. And suddenly, they're being chased by what they thought they controlled, because demons don't care who bleeds first, only that someone pays. And when the target is untouchable, the sender becomes the sacrifice. This is why blood oaths backfire. They are deals with no mercy clause. They are contracts with no exit. And when they fail to deliver power, they collect pain. You don't have to lift a finger. You don't have to curse them back. You don't even have to know what they did. You just have to remain in alignment, because the same blood they offered as a weapon now drips back onto their own altar, and heaven watches. So if you've felt a strange peace while others are falling apart, if you've seen them lose control while you walk in clarity, that's not luck. That's what it looks like. When God turns the curse, you didn't need to cast anything. You didn't need to retaliate. You just needed to be covered. And because you were, the curse didn't just fail. It boomeranged. And now they bleed for a battle they already lost. They set the table, but they weren't the ones who ate. You see, in ancient witchcraft, particularly the kind hidden in forests, backwoods, and whispers, there's a ritual that looks harmless, even beautiful. A midnight feast, an offering spread beneath moonlight. Roasted fruit, spiced meats, golden cups filled to the brim with honeyed wine. But it's not for guests you can see. It's for spirits, entities. Some call them old gods. Others call them guides. But they're not guests of peace. The feast is a contract. The moment food is laid out, it becomes an invitation. Come, take this. Bless me. Obey me. But spirits are never that simple. They take, but they do not obey. One man known for practicing this feast set his table in silence. He circled it 3 times, bowed, and left it overnight. He believed he'd gain favor. He wanted to curse his rival, send barrenness into her home, confusion into her career. But what came didn't listen to instructions. That very night, he began to see eyes blinking from dark corners. Furniture moved, shadows crawled, and within days, he could no longer eat at his own table. He claimed the food smelled of rot, even when it was fresh. He tried to cleanse the house, tried to reverse the ritual, but it was too late, because what he invited in was still hungry. C.S. Lewis warned that there's no such thing as a harmless ritual, that anything mimicking divine worship without divine surrender is a parody, a counterfeit, and counterfeits always end in collapse. These feasts are not meals, they're thrones. You're not feeding a being, you're enthroning it. You say, "Come help me," but what you're really saying is, "Sit in authority over this house." And when that spirit realizes you have no true protection, it doesn't just eat, it consumes. Because when the curse they intended for someone else doesn't land, when the spirits realize the target is covered, they don't vanish. They feed on the one who called them. This is the hidden danger of the feast. It's not about the food, it's about permission. If the spirit can't devour the blessed, it devours the witch. This is why curses backfire at the table. Because dark spirits don't operate in justice, they operate in hunger. And if they can't eat what you gave them, they turn and would consume the hand that offered it. So the very mouth that sent destruction toward you now cries out in torment. And you sit in peace, because you never invited anything in. You only hosted the presence of God. They tried to make a feast and became the main course. That's what happens when the spirit world answers a call that shouldn't have been made. What they meant for your destruction has become their own undoing. There's a divine irony woven into the universe. What evil builds for harm, God repurposes for glory. The trap they set for you, it's already closing on their own hands. This isn't superstition, it's divine symmetry. From Haman hanging on his own gallows to Pharaoh drowning in the sea he prepared for Moses, the enemy's plan becomes their own punishment. C.S. Lewis called this the Great Reversal. The deeper evil tries to descend into control, the more it sabotages itself. That's the law. They cursed you, but the curse returned. They slandered your name, but their own reputation withered. They sent arrows of sabotage, but now their own peace is unraveling. Because what they didn't realize is this: you are sealed, you are covered, and the blood that covers you speaks. It speaks louder than hexes, louder than chants, louder than shadows. It says, "This one is mine." And so, when the enemy aimed, God intercepted. What they released into the atmosphere didn't vanish, it reversed. And now, it's hitting their lives. Finances crumbling, relationships dissolving, dreams turning into nightmares. They whisper, "Maybe we shouldn't have touched her. Maybe we shouldn't have spoken his name." But by then, it's too late. This isn't revenge. This is justice, because the same God who hears the cry of the righteous responds. He doesn't just comfort, he defends, he exposes, he overturns. Even in silence, he is active. Even in stillness, he is moving. And when he moves, everything changes. So don't be surprised when the tables turn. Don't be shocked when those who targeted you begin to tremble. It's not karma. It's not coincidence. It's the kingdom law of reversal. And it's already working in your life, because the fire they meant to consume you has refined you. The scandal meant to ruin you has purified your voice. The spell meant to confuse you has sharpened your discernment. You've emerged with scars turned to symbols, pain turned to prophecy, warfare turned into witness. Let them watch. You are not under their curse. You are under divine reversal. You were never the victim. They tried to curse you, but the curse missed. What they built for your downfall became their own undoing, not because you fought harder, but because you were already covered. Their rituals couldn't touch your covenant. Their whispers couldn't cancel your calling. Their shadows couldn't stand against your light. So let them talk. Let them gather. Let them try again. Because every time they aim, the reversal begins sooner. You don't have to prove yourself. You just have to stay aligned, anchored, covered. Because the next time they try to curse you, they won't just fail. They'll witness your promotion.